You are in the SAFE program. You have student loan debt, federal student loan debt. Get online right now. Check Nelnet, check AidVantage, because they just fucking charged me interest.
Show me the people who are struggling, who need my loan money, and then maybe I will think about it. But like, it's just not adding up, Steven. Y'all still ain't got everybody who stole from PPP. You know what I'm saying? Go handle that. Send out emails for that. I didn't take
She's got a
advantage
point.
of y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I have some bad news. The roosters have come home to roost when it comes to student loans. So let's take a look at what's happening.
Y'all really want that student loan money for real? Like, y'all serious about that? And what do y'all need it for? Schools are still open. Still enrolling. I'm still graduating. What do you need my dollars for? I'm out of school. You know, I didn't graduate. I started working. I've given back enough. Hello? RN, hello? I've been dealing with too much yet to have to pay them damn loans back. I'm gonna just be honest. Show me the people who are struggling, who need my loan money, and then maybe I will think about it. But like, it's just not adding up, Steven. Y'all still ain't got everybody who stole from PPP. You know what I'm saying? Go handle that. Send out emails for that. I didn't take advantage of y'all and take that PPP. So the least that you could do is forgive my damn loan. You have bigger fish to fry. Ain't y'all got a war going on? And it's like, y'all love to send them when all of the bills are due. Rent, cell phone, car insurance, my Milan Laser membership, hello, Patreon, my Apple Music, that Amex gotta be paid off every month. You're sending that loan email every single month when the rest of my real life bills are due that I can't live without. You know what I'm saying? I can live without paying my loans. I can't live without paying that rent. I got car insurance to pay. But you asking for some loans for some that happened 7 years ago? You asking me to pay you back for some shit that happened 7 years ago? Because to me, it sounds like y'all just need to stop handing out loans to motherfuckers who you know ain't finna pay them back. But you can't, because you need us to go to school, right? Because you need us to be the ants and the foot soldiers for you, right? Oh, it sounds like you need me. You know what I'm saying? So let that shit go. Just let it die. Let the loans die.
Oh, man. Shout out to Sierra Mornai, this creator on TikTok. So this is something that's been kind of unfolding here, student loans, since Trump took office earlier this year. And like I said, the roosters have come home to roost. A lot of things are changing very rapidly with the passing of the big, beautiful bill. Student loans are coming due now. If you are familiar with the SAVE plan, the SAVE plan was the 0% interest forbearance. That had been going on since COVID. That was originally enacted by Trump and then sustained by President Biden. That is now coming to an end after a little less than 5 years. And I mean, I actually only have one student loan left. It's my wife's student loan, and it is on the SAVE plan. It's not a huge balance, but we've been putting the money elsewhere. And now the time has come to just face this loan to pay it off. Unfortunately, there are many people that have been in this forbearance with 0% interest that are now beginning to see that, you know, on August 1st of this year, 2025, interest will begin to accrue after years of it not being there. And I can't help but think, I thought this to myself, why did I not just pay that off to begin with when I had the money in the first place? And obviously hindsight's 2020, but people with very large balances are going to be in for a rude awakening. And it's not something that is going to be pleasant to witness because, as you can see in this next video, if you have a large balance, it's just going to explode.
I think $7,000 is a reasonable monthly payment amount for student loans. I was completely shocked. I'm a pharmacist. I have student loans. You've probably seen the saga on my TikTok about this. With all of the recent legislation, I just went through StudentGov's website and did some loan simulation. Thank God for income-based repayment, but I just wanted to show how unreasonable it is to have standard repayment only. So in the new proposed bill, there's going to be two forms of repayment: standard repayment and the RAP, repayment assistance plan. If you're already in repayment, then the plan that you're in, you can stay in. So it'll only affect new borrowers, or I believe after July of 2028. But I just wanted to see what potentially my options would be. And I just can't even believe this, over $7,000. So again, I'm a pharmacist. I graduated in 2016. I've been paying monthly on my student loans when I can. I have been in SAVE, so I have been in forced forbearance. But how are people affording this?
Yeah. And so with all these changes happening, with the SAVE plan going away forever, there's a few options people have, and I don't really want to talk about the technicalities, the options like that. I more so just want to talk about the tidal wave of financial insecurity that's going to hit millions of people, millions of borrowers, because especially if you have a large balance, like she had a balance of $349,000. And on the standard repayment, the monthly payment would be $7,000. I would imagine the interest rate is between 8 to 12%. It could be more, but on a balance that large, the interest is going to grow. The monthly payment that's due is going to, not be pretty. And unfortunately, the payments you make are not going to make much of a dent in your overall balance. Student loans, to me, when I see stuff like this, I just, am so thankful to God that I was never in a position where I was in over 6 figures of student loan debt. I think I personally had $32,000 of student loan debt, was able to pay that off. My wife had a similar amount, and we were able to get it down to around $5,000, and we'll begin to pay the rest of that off as quickly as possible. But man, my heart just goes out to those who have huge balances, because it really does seem like you'll never pay it off when the interest is starting to accrue. The fact that interest accumulates so quickly is really, really putting people in bad positions to where they cannot get out of these loans unless they make extreme life changes. And of course, I understand that we all have agency. These people chose to get these loans. I'm not saying that loans should necessarily be forgiven. I was once of that mindset. And, then I began to see when you do stuff like that, like loan forgiveness, inflation just accumulates because obviously the government's paying for it and the government has to print money to pay for it. We just continue to go into the debt spiral, and that's not going to be good for the future of this country. It's not going to be good for the US dollar. Now, if you don't agree with me on that, I really urge you to do some self-reflecting, and I understand it's difficult when you have a large balance, but we all have so much agency. We all can do so much. This woman, I don't think, would agree with me in this next video.
You are in the SAVE program. You have student loan debt, federal student loan debt. Get online right now. Check Nelnet, check AidVantage, because they just fucking charged me interest. I thought that was illegal. It's illegal, right? Because tell me why. I just looked it up. And the Trump administration just added interest back to my loans that are in forbearance. I will never forgive you!
The interest was going to come at some point. It was these loans were never not going to get interest back on them, because then the servicers would collapse. The banks that service these loans would fall apart, and that would have a huge, huge ramification on our economy. And given the values of this administration, this all makes sense. This was going to happen. Obviously, don't like to see it happen so quickly. I think it would have made more sense for it to have a lot more of a head start, because I think people were given about a month advance warning that, interest was going to start accruing. And that's clearly not fast enough. I don't know how these servicers are going to keep up with the inundation of borrowers that are going to be switching out of the SAVE program into other programs. And there's been other things about like wage garnishment and people just not paying their student loans back. This all gets to the question of, how do we fix the student loan issue? This is a big, big problem. One of my college professors in 2013 informed me, and this is pretty terrible, that as a college student, I wasn't even aware of this, but she informed me that there was no cap on student loans. And so the reason that tuition increased so much was the fact that the government could just loan whatever amount to whoever. It doesn't matter what you're studying, but they could loan an unlimited amount of money to those borrowers. And one person might think that that's a good idea because it allows people to afford education, to take a chance on themselves, and I agree to some extent. But a more reasonable person will see that the government and these institutions of education are going to take advantage of their citizens. Just based on historical data, I could tell you, I don't know how one wouldn't come to that conclusion, but they would take advantage of their citizens. And of course, that's what they did. And That's why we have education costs that have exploded over the past 20, 30 years. And this next video I'm going to show you kind of explains that as well.
As someone who depended heavily on student loans, I am not concerned at all about this whole student loan situation. In fact, I do think that this is a good thing. I was a first-generation college graduate. I was in group homes. I needed student loans for my bachelor's degree and my master's degrees. But what I will tell you is that when I was in undergrad, I noticed that every year when my tuition went up, it was because the student loan amount went up. The school literally raised their tuition to match whatever the maximum federal allotment was. So whether you like a capitalistic type society or not, that is what we have currently. So the only way to correct the price issue within college, because it has spiraled out of control ever since they started printing money so people could go to school, it has caused costs to increase substantially. So yes, there's going to be an adjustment period for costs to come back down, but this will ultimately make college more competitive, both financially and probably quality as well.
And so if you're not aware, the new big beautiful bill actually put a lifetime cap on student loans that a single borrower could take out, which I never thought would ever happen because I thought greed would just never be quenched by these people. But it appears as though that is the case. And obviously there are people that are very upset about this. There are people like me that see the bright side of this. And so let's look at another video of someone that is not happy, but I want to hear her points.
Well, they've capped student loans, so if you want to be a doctor, I guess you're out of luck. Only the wealthy can become doctors. You want to be a dentist, you're also not going to be able to do that for $300,000. So I guess that's only going to be open to wealthy people.
Will that make colleges cut their rates though? Or give more financially?
Great question.
I hope that it will make, I hope that it will have an impact in bringing down, because I feel like it's similar to the mortgage crisis. When the banks just started lending out of control, then housing prices went through the roof because everybody could qualify
She's
for a loan
reasonable.
that they shouldn't have
She's
been able to
reasonable.
qualify for. Well, I think the same thing happens with school tuition. When the bankers are making so much money putting these ridiculous loans out there that these students will never be able to pay because the banks are going to front load their interest payment and then they're going to sell off the loan and leave it to some other bank or the federal government to pick up the slack. But the answer is not let's cap student loans and nobody gets to become a doctor except rich people. The answer is find reasonable underwriting criteria, work with the students, work with the schools, work with the banks to make sure that they're lending in a responsible way. You don't want to give a $300,000 loan to someone who is trying to become a Title I school teacher
Precisely.
and making $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. But giving a $300,000 loan to somebody who is becoming a neurosurgeon, that's different. That person's going to be able to pay that loan back.
So she made a decent point there at the end about, it costs a lot more to become a neurosurgeon than it does to become a teacher, or at least that's what should be the case. Unfortunately, it still costs a lot of money to become a teacher in some cases, depending on the university you're going to. Not as much as becoming a neurosurgeon. I mean, that's the most extreme example that one could give in this particular case. Being a neurosurgeon could be, $300,000 to $500,000 of student loans, and you would not be able to qualify for that if you had to borrow all of that money. However, here is the point I think that is most important. She acknowledged the fact that this could potentially correct the cost of higher education. That is the most important thing here. If it takes time, and it's going to take time, it's not just going to be a snap of a finger and college is going to be affordable, because these universities have become so used to the government lending extremely high amounts of money, as well as private organizations lending extremely large amounts of money. And there really has to be, I think, more strategic legislation against these types of things, against these types of practices, because as long as there's people that are willing to lend the money, the institutions are going to make the tuition more and more expensive. If you just look at a chart of college tuition over the past 30 years, it's just a chart that goes up. And it's because lending has increased and the cost of tuition increases proportionately. And so I think this is a step in the right direction. Obviously, we can talk about whether or not this prices people out of particular career paths, and we can think about ways to get creative to make sure that those people can get those degrees, particularly when it comes to doctors, lawyers, things like that. But this addresses a much, much larger problem, honestly, the sickness that is within the student loan industry, and that is putting a cap finally on loans that, let's be very frank, are destroying people's lives. And these people are not going to have the ability to access true capital, true wealth, because they're always going to have these loans on their backs. And so that's all I have to say. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you had anything that you agreed with or disagreed with, please leave a comment below. And you never know, I may feature your comment in the next video if I found it interesting or entertaining, whatever the case may be. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.